What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market. I'm going to break down what's happening with the data coming out for tomorrow and whether the market is doing a good job at holding some key supports. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total. And the offer ends very soon at the end of March. Anyways, as far as SPY is going, guys, I had this drawn out a couple of hours ago. We were talking about how we had this really nice bullish wedge right over here on SPY. I said if we broke out of this, we would be looking a lot more bullish. And this is what it looked like initially. So initially we got this nice looking wedge that was forming. It looked just like this, and I was saying that this is going to likely just try to continue to push. But anyways, we ended up getting a really nice push after that, and that's what ended up helping this at least to a larger extent. So with that being said, we broke out of the wedge. Okay, we did a very good job. And now that we broke out of this, this is now developing into what could be like a rising wedge that's forming on SPY. So that's pretty good right now. We'll have to see if this holds the supports. But overall, this still remains a bit more bullish. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about other factors. Okay, so as far as the market went today, we saw the finance sector more in the green. We saw some retail trades in the red, such as like Amazon and Google. Google/Alphabet caused Amazon to dip a little bit. Nvidia tried to make a comeback, and then Tesla was in the red because of some of their sales declining. So a lot of big pieces of news came out. So we'll talk more about the charts in just a couple of minutes. I first want to talk about some news and data. Under Donald Trump's presidency, he has announced that he wants to increase tariffs to 10% on China. That is the latest update that came out. And as a result, China has tried to retaliate by increasing tariffs and imposing 15% tariffs on the US oil, liquefied natural gas exports, and other things like that. This also is going to be affecting automakers as they want to increase tariffs as well. And this has been affecting a lot of our American automakers, such as like Ford, Lincoln, and many others like that. So just keep that in mind. These American automakers do depend on Chinese labor and production capabilities to help them really get those costs down. And that's something that could be affecting them at least moving forward, causing prices to possibly go up just a bit. So with that being said, this is something that's going on right now. And that's why when we saw Ford's earnings, it did end up seeing a bit of a sell-off afterwards. Besides that, let's just go over what else ended up happening. So I went over all these earnings in the morning. Uber and Disney had their earnings. Disney had good earnings, but they are expecting subscribers to decrease a little bit for the year. Despite that, we just had Ford announce their earnings, and it wasn't looking too bad. One thing I want to mention is the fact that with their overall sales, when you look at their adjusted earnings before interest and taxes, it actually dropped to about $10.2 billion compared to about $10.4 billion in 2023. So that technically shows a bit of a decline in their earnings. And there's also some fears involving China with the automakers expenditures going up a little bit. So that is what's leading to this share price to kind of like sell off a little bit. But despite that, I would say that their earnings were not too bad. Even their guidance was so-so. So looking at everything for the full year, the automaker reported revenue up about 5% for about $185 billion. That is technically above what we saw in 2023. And then when it comes to their overall continuations, we're looking for some more improvements. We also started to see their fourth quarter revenue at about $48.2 billion. That is above expectations. And that's not too bad. We also saw them tell us about how other earnings went. Everything was basically very close to expectations. However, when it comes to the guidance for the year ahead, they did mention the fact that for the full year, we're looking for another increase in their full year EBIT, which is once again better than what we expected from beforehand. And then we're also going to be looking for some cost reductions when it comes to their Ford Model E. So that's what's going on so far. There was flat revenue, at least when it comes to their wholesale prices, by about 2%. And despite that, they're going to be looking to reduce some costs. So overall, with a lot of questions about the tariffs that are coming out, this could have a big effect on their revenues, and this is leading to a little bit of a sell-off. Guidance did not go over every detail involving that, so that's something that could be affecting them negatively. And then their overall earnings, there was a slight decline when it comes to their overall adjusted earnings before interest and taxes. So that's the reason why the share price is down for Ford. Despite that, we want to just keep that in mind. The market is still remaining bullish despite that. Besides that, don't forget that going back over here for Thursday, we have Lilly and Roblox announcing their earnings tomorrow before market open. And then after market close, we have Amazon. Amazon's going to be a big one, so get ready for that. On top of this, I just want to mention that as far as tomorrow goes, we have initial jobless claims 1 hour before the market opens. So get ready for some volatility thanks to that. And then on Friday, 1 hour before the stock market opens, we have the unemployment numbers coming out, some payrolls for manufacturing and governmental ones, and that's going to cause a lot more volatility as well. So Friday is going to be a big day for our data. It's not going to be as serious tomorrow as we just have initial jobless claims. Just keep that in mind. Lastly, the fear and greed index is currently at fear. That's making up the majority of sentiments. Momentum is also more in the fear state. And besides that, the put to call option ratio did start to go up a little bit. We saw more puts being bought, which is what led to the market getting a nice squeeze. And the VIX is coming back down again. So what do I think about the markets? Honestly, guys, we're looking bullish. SPY is trying to break out of this so far. I mentioned that we had a bullish wedge. If we broke through that, we're looking for 605 as our targets. Now that we broke out of that, this could be developing into like a rising wedge-like pattern, unless we just break through this and start filling these imbalances. But overall, we look more bullish. So turning all of these indicators off, we look bullish. As long as SPY does not lose 602 and then 600, we favor upside. Why? We had a low down here from February 3rd, which was Monday. And ever since Monday, ever since the tariff news came out and the fact that the tariffs on Mexico and China have been delayed, the market's been uptrending, making this higher low right here compared to this low. Then we made another higher low, and we're just continuing to break out. So it looks bullish. There's no sign that this is bearish. Unless we lose 602 and 600, we're still favoring upside. Watch 605 as resistance. If we could break past this, I would anticipate that we might kind of slow down first before it starts to push higher. But we're looking for 608 as our next potential target. There might be a rising wedge unless we just break through the upper trend line, but I just want to say that we look bullish. Whether we get an initial sell-off by 1 or 2 points before it continues to uptrend for that 608's target, or if we just break out from here, the chart remains bullish. For the QQQ, very similar setup. We look bullish. We had this low right here after the tariff news, all the way down to 507. We came up, made a higher low, came up, made a higher low, another higher low, and we're just continuing to break out. Even the fact that Alphabet's earnings were not that good did not cause us to dump much. It just dipped a little bit, only to get a big bounce back up. So it's still on a very, very nice uptrend. There's an imbalance to fill up here. We could dip a little bit before it tries to continue to push. As long as we're above 528, I'm targeting the 530s and eventually 533. If we end up losing 523, we're looking for a dip back down. But I think that this is on a very, very nice uptrend, and we could continue to push back up into the 530s. So overall, the QQQ looks bullish, so just keep that in mind. For the Russell 2000 IWM, we're looking more bullish. We're making higher highs and higher lows. We have a very, very nice looking, this kind of looks like an inverse head and shoulders setup on the 4-hour time frame. We also bounced off this trend line of support ever since we got the Monday news. So we have this previous resistance becoming support. We held that very nicely to maintain this uptrend, and there's an inverse head and shoulders, which creates a confluence of support. So right now, if we break resistance at 230, I expect this to break out all the way up to about 233. If we lose that and we don't break past 230, our main support's at 227. Looking at 230 as our resistance, I favor we're going to try to break this and go up to about 232, so the chart remains more bullish. Looking at ES, okay, there is technically like a channel right here. So if you zoom out like this, what's interesting is that we had this previous resistance becoming support. So we've been bouncing off supports here, here, and here very, very nicely. And now we're trying to respect a rising wedge. But here's the thing about this. We do have a tough resistance close to about the 6100 area. So see this trend line above. Let me just change the colors so it's easy for me to distinguish them. I'm going to make my rising wedge blue. I'm going to change this a little bit. But look at this yellow resistance up here, right? There's this yellow line of resistance. This is going to be tested very soon. So I think that ES may continue to uptrend and try to test around 6,100. If that breaks, this could be a nice breakout for us to continue to push closer to these all-time highs. For now, I'm not too worried about us rejecting or anything like that. I think we continue to uptrend a little bit higher for 6,100. As long as we don't lose 60.55, we maintain a bullish looking trend and the chart looks more bullish. Look at the same thing that's going on NQ. You could draw a trend line like this, and what you'll see is that we're technically near resistance. We're trying to break through this, but we're doing a good job so far. So we're above the blue resistance zone. As long as we maintain this, I think we could continue to uptrend slowly for about 21,850. If we end up losing support at 21,600, we're looking for essentially 21,500 as our support. But I think there's a very good chance that we try to continue this pump. So make sure you watch this. Whoops, let me just fix this real quick. Make sure you guys watch this very, very closely for a move like this. Might see a little bit of a pullback before it continues to slowly uptrend like this for these higher levels into the 21,800s, back up to where this imbalance is, looking more bullish. So it got a nice bounce, making higher lows, doing a great job at holding support. Looks bullish to me. Now, the market could be kind of drawing away from crypto just a little bit as it's starting to see equities pumping. This sometimes happens, but I think that Bitcoin is going to be completely fine nonetheless. Now, what isn't good about Bitcoin is the fact that we're making lower highs. So if you look at this trend line just like this, you'll see that we are getting a rejection just like that, and we're continuing to respect this as resistance. So with that being said, this is continuing to make lower highs here. Might continue to downtrend unless we get a break. I want to see this reclaim 100,025 to turn back to bullish. Otherwise, it's on a slight downtrend, so Bitcoin could slowly inch its way down to about 95,000. And we'll see if buyers defend it, but that's what I'm seeing for now. For Nvidia, we said it was looking bullish in my morning video, and so far it's looking bullish. We've broken past resistance at this 120 area. I think that this tries to push a little bit higher for 126.66 maybe tomorrow, and we'll see if we break past that or not. If we do break this, it's going to continue to push. If it rejects here, we could be turning back down, but I favor we're going to be going to the 126.6 area or above, so watch that very closely. Tesla's a little bit lackluster. I need to see if this holds 375-ish. If that does not hold, we may dip a little bit lower towards like 368. I want to see 375 hold though, just to be safe. It is looking lackluster compared to the markets because there's been a lot of reports coming out about how number one, the tariffs in China may affect them. But the number two, well, not number two, the number one reason technically is actually, it's not the tariffs. That's making some headlines. But the main piece of news is the fact that their sales are declining. So the German, the European, and the American sales for the month of January all went down compared to what we saw in 2024. So 2025 January is a little bit weaker than 2024 January. We're seeing declines by 59% in Germany. We're seeing declines by 10% in America, and other European countries are seeing declines between 10 and about 25%. And some of them are like around 43%. So it's all over the place, but lots of declines for Tesla for now. It could be that many of these buyers are waiting for the Model Y refresh. It could be many different reasons for why this is happening, but that has been a little bit negative for Tesla, which is why it's dipping a bit. I'm going to be watching a retest of 375. We got to hold this tomorrow. If we hold this, we could try to bounce back above 380. If we reclaim that, we have resistance at 386. That's our main 200 EMA. If we don't hold 375, depending on the news tomorrow, we could be dumping back down to 370, then eventually 368 or below. So it depends on if Tesla could hold support. As of right now, it's looking a bit more bearish, so I'm a little concerned about this. It might dip a little bit lower. So we'll see just to be safe. But right now, we have this support that's trying to hold around this 375 zone. We'll see if that holds or not. So please watch that very closely, and we'll be very, very patient nonetheless. For what is this? Apple looks a little bit more bullish. We have a tough resistance at 232.8. If we break that, we're looking for this gap fill and a push for 233, and eventually 236. What is good about this setup is the fact that this kind of resembles an inverse head and shoulders, a little bit sloppy looking, but it still works. If it ends up turning down and loses 230, we're looking for support right here around this 226 area. So we'll see if that holds. For now, we're holding support, and we are looking a bit more bullish, looking at our PPO and the fact that we have like a triple bottom that's pushing this upwards with lots of these imbalances. So I believe that this is favoring. It wants to break 232 and start pushing for 236. Right now, the bulls have a bigger edge. We'll see just to be safe, but that's what I'm seeing on the chart thus far. Let me go over the rest of these and be a little bit quicker. So looking at Netflix, I said yesterday we're looking for an attempt for 1,000. We're breaking all-time highs here. If we end up holding above 1,000, this is going to be a very psychological support. I think 1,025 could be a nice target. It's not breaking out like 10%. It's slowly uptrending, but it's looking bullish to me, and we could be looking for 1,025 as our next potential target. Looking good so far. MicroStrategy saw a bit of a sell-off, unfortunately. This is selling off because of what happened with earnings, at least thus far. Unfortunately, it's selling off right now, so it might dip a little bit more closer to about 325, and we'll see if we get a bounce off that or not. But I'm looking for 330 and 325 as our targets for a temporary move to the downside as we're rejecting off this trend line, which could lead to some downside, so keep that in mind. For Celsius, we're on a bit of a downtrend. Why are we on a downtrend? Because we're making lower highs just like this. We want to see if this could reclaim 25 to turn back up. If not, I'm going to be watching to see if 21.8 is where this thing tries to base at. It's not doing that bad. It might dip a little bit more to about the low 22s at 21.8, and we'll see if we bounce or not, so just keep that in mind. Supermicro got a nice breakout like this off this falling wedge, so it's looking more bullish. Good job by Supermicro, at least so far. I want to see this continue to hold up. We're going to be looking for a retest of 32.96. If that breaks, we're going to be going for about 34. So watch and see if we could break 32.96. I think it pushes for that, and we'll see if it bounces or not. For Palantir, we pumped very, very hard after earnings. Good job by their earnings. Very, very solid, especially as they have new contracts that are coming and good earnings, good guidance, and pretty much everything was good. So I'm looking for a retest of 100. We'll see if we can maintain this or not. What typically happens during big moves like this is you pull back, but then you continue to push later on. So watch 100. If that does not hold us, we're looking for support right here around that 97.5 area. Then we have about 93 after that. Might dip to about 97.5 if 100 doesn't hold before it tries to bounce, which is completely normal because it's up so much compared to where it was just a couple of days ago before earnings. Still looks bullish nonetheless. Rivian is looking promising. We had a giant falling wedge developing on the charts, and it's starting to break out. I want to see it get back above 13 to really start pushing. I believe it might test that soon, but it's still technically range bound unless we break 13. So look for some sideways price action, maybe a break past 13 if that ends up breaking resistance. So just keep that in mind. For SoFi is trying to hold its 200 EMA. If we break 15.92, we're looking for an attempt to push up to about 16.5. Now, if we end up losing 15.16, we're looking for a dip back down to about 14.68. So we're holding support nicely. We're making a higher low here, so it could be pushing for about 15.92 or above. So I think the 16s could be coming, and I see some upside potential in this. For AMD, notice that we have this previous support becoming resistance at 113. I would like to see this try to retest 113. This is a very, very key level. It might be a little tricky to get back up there after it sold off so much after earnings. So we're going to be watching to see if this could uptrend just a little bit. Might see a temporary relief rally. So basically, I expect a little pullback here, but as long as we don't lose this low, it should try to push back up to about 113. And then from there, we'll be watching to see, do we get a rejection back down or do we pounce? Do we bounce? Watch and see what we end up doing here, but that's what I'm seeing at least so far on the chart. For ARM, a little bit lackluster, especially after I think they just had earnings. I heard that their outlook was not as strong. So when you zoom out, this could be like a giant cup and handle like structure. We were pushing very nicely, looking bullish, but then we got this rejection. So tomorrow, I do expect this to retest 160. If it does not hold us, 156 is coming, so it might decline a bit. Then we'll see if we bounce. For a coin, we are technically on a downtrend making lower highs right here. If we manage to reclaim 277.5, we're looking for a bounce for 282. And if we can't hold above that, we're looking for support at 272. I believe that coin might kind of push to the resistance at 277.5, then start dipping back down to about 272, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But just keep that in mind, there might be a little bit of a dip. On Amazon, we're range bound. It has earnings tomorrow, so I'm expecting a big move. Tomorrow, we might be doing something like this where we pushed about this resistance at 238, maybe even 240. Maybe it tries to go higher. We'll have to see about that. But it doesn't matter what it does tomorrow. What matters is earnings. Good earnings could launch us to the 250s, or it could give us a rug pull to the 220s. We'll see depending on how earnings goes. So just look for some consolidation tomorrow and maybe a push higher, as there's typically some positive sentiment associated with their earnings as it's uptrending. But it all depends on what they end up announcing. Meta is holding 700. It's a very, very tight support. If 700 fails, let's look for 694. As long as we're above 700, we're looking for a push for 710. So keep that in mind. For Microsoft, we have 416's resistance and 420. And if we lose support at 409, 408, we could turn back down. So there's a nice accumulation right here, and we could be pushing for 416.5 as our resistance. So I think there's a very good chance we try to push even higher. For Google, we're in the middle. We have to see if we could hold 191.36. If that holds, we're looking for a bounce to about 196. If we lose 191, we will end up turning back down. I'm hoping it holds 191 for now, so it might do a little consolidation dance like this before it starts to slowly inch its way up to about 195. But I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation, then maybe a push higher as long as we don't lose 191. If we close below 191, our 200 EMA, that's going to be a bad sign. This could be dipping lower. But for now, we're watching to see how this ends up going. Anyways, as far as GameStop goes, we're on a bit of a downtrend. Might be looking for a target of about the lower 24s. Unfortunately, we saw a bit of a dip so far. Not the best of news for them. AMC has tough resistance at 3.17. If we can't break that, we might be dipping to about the low threes. DJT was trying to bounce to fill the gap and it got a rejection. It may slowly downtrend for essentially the 29.5 area. For the VIX, this is on a bit of a downtrend. We have an imbalance now, and there's another gap. I think we already filled that gap, but there's an imbalance here around 15.3. I believe there was another gap. I don't know if it's going to be dipping that low to fill that gap, but I do think that this is looking bearish. This might dip a little bit more as the market tries to push a bit higher, so just keep that in mind. The 10-year is dipping right now. This tends to be bullish for the markets, but this will be greatly affected by our unemployment numbers on Friday. So we'll see how that affects the dollar and our 10-year treasury yield. And these are very, very indecisive now until we get that data. So for now, as of right now, at the time I'm speaking, the market's looking bullish. SPY is pushing, trying to break past resistance in a very, very nice wedge. It may continue to go higher as long as we hold above 602. It might pull back a little bit from here and start to continue to push on a very, very nice uptrend to 608 if we break past 605 and hold above it. So for now, the bulls have a bigger edge. Could this change? It could always change depending on the news, but as of right now, and at the time I'm recording this, the bulls have a bigger edge and we favor the upside. With that being said, I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Please have a good rest of your day, and I'll be back with another update tomorrow morning before market open. I appreciate you guys for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.